When you think of most anticipated games of all time, you probably think of GTA 6 or Elder Scrolls 6. I mean, Elder Scrolls 6 was announced 6 years ago and we still have no news about it. And while these are two of, if not the most anticipated games ever, I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into this iceberg, if you will. I want to look back and just look at the history of video games and figure out how excited people were for certain releases. Whether it's Nintendo, Sega, Sony, Microsoft, we will look back at the history of video games and we will go through some of the most highly anticipated games in video game history. I hope you enjoy the video. Let's get right into it. Let's stick with the theme of Grand Theft Auto and let's talk about a very highly anticipated game that is still very popular nowadays. GTA 5 was announced in 2011 and it sent people into an absolute frenzy. Back then you had a bunch of people just making theory videos on what they thought the game would be. There was even a fake real look into GTA 5. It was actually a game called 8 Days. But it was like this video somebody posted where you could control these two guys in the desert. One of them was wearing a red shirt and it ended with the guy in the red shirt hanging onto a huge container being carried away by a helicopter and shooting at cars chasing after him. Once they started dropping the individual trailers for each of the playable characters, that's whenever people really lost their minds. 3 characters in a GTA game? What? As I'm sure you all know by now, whenever GTA was released, it was played a bunch, the single player was played a bunch, but nowadays it's just fallen into pretty much an online game that is bugged and filled with a bunch of microtransactions and trolls pretty much. But while I can make a whole video discussing the flaws of Grand Theft Auto 5, which believe me, there are a lot, like leaving the single player community pretty much rotting in the gutter, GTA 5 was definitely one of the most hyped games of all time as well. It had so many people just hyped for the brand new game. It was probably one of the reasons why a lot of people were buying the PS4 and Xbox One. I'm just kidding, I don't actually know, but still, GTA 5 definitely one of the most hyped games of all time, and I think because of how good of a game that was, it's leading to more of the hype for Grand Theft Auto 6. Moving on to one of my all-time favorite games, Half-Life 2. Half-Life 2 came out in 2004, but before that, Half-Life 2 wasn't even going to be a thing. Most people really liked Half-Life 1. They thought that it pretty much wrapped things up pretty well. The ending was left open, but there was no obvious sequel bait at the end of Half-Life 1. But when Valve started showing off screens of Half-Life 2, I could not imagine games looking more realistic back then. Half-Life 2 and Doom 3 were basically on the cover of every PC gaming mag back then, even if it was only a blurb. I don't know if console gamers were aware of the hype of Half-Life 2, but in the PC sphere, it was a huge deal. It helps the case of Half-Life 2 as well because the game is absolutely brilliant. It's one of the greatest games ever made. It's, in my opinion, it's leagues better than Half-Life 1, and I love Half-Life 1. The game was also delayed numerous times, not because there was any problems making the game, it just Valve was not ready to release it yet. So the multiple delays with the game actually built up hype even more, and whenever they would release trailers or screenshots of the game, people just lost their minds. They could not wait for Half-Life 2. Once people started finding the concept art for Half-Life 2, thousands of questions were asked, mainly because it looked completely different from the first game, and people were wondering what you were going to actually do in the games. Finally, whenever the real footage came out, just about every detail was mind-blowing in those trailers. Half-Life 2 was one of the first games to have dynamic interactions between characters and NPCs. The beginning of the game, whenever the guard is telling you to pick up the can, it was impressive to everyone. Everyone was just mind blown that you can pick up items in the game. The graphics at the time also were incredible. The entire atmosphere and aesthetics of the game were top-notch and very impressive. It was one of the first games to have high-definition skyboxes that appeared to go on forever. And then, of course, the gravity gun. This single device, as you know from playing Half-Life 2, really changed the way people thought about interacting with their environments. It was not only a fun weapon, but was also a great tool. Valve was able to start a whole franchise from the idea of this weapon. Portal. Alright, next game on this video is very fitting because I've just made a tier list on these games. It's Halo 3. At the time of its announcement and its eventual release, Halo 3 was probably the most talked about game pre-release ever, up to that point. The first two Halo games were incredible. People were waiting for the third installment in the legendary trilogy up to that point. And also, it was everywhere before it was even released. Halo 3, for like a month before it came out, every article about video games would reference it. Screw Attack even made a video called 10 games you should get if you're not interested in Halo 3. 7-Eleven even had themed Slurpee cups for Halo 3 as well. But also on the topic of kind of science fiction games, Cyberpunk 2077 has to be in this video as well. And Cyberpunk is an incredible game, but everyone back then expected it to redefine video games, which was crazy. And also, don't give me that excuse like the game was terrible whenever it first released. It still lived up to the hype. It was the highest rated game of its launch year. 13 million copies sold the first month. Another absolute masterpiece of a game as well was Red Dead Redemption 2. I eventually want to talk more in depth about Red Dead Redemption 2, so I'll say this about it. It was one of the most massive games ever created, and one of the most lifelike games. In fact, the most common criticism of it is that it's too realistic. The entire world just feels alive, and the animals behave exactly as they might in real life. But I eventually do want to talk more in depth about Red Dead Redemption 2 because it is one of my favorite games of all time, probably top 10. Here's a game you might not have expected on this list, but Final Fantasy VII Remake was one of the most anticipated video games ever. The original was too, and it was just an industry-defining title. The hype for the original Final Fantasy VII was super strong, especially with a franchise associated with Nintendo going to Sony. But that was mainly in Japan. People outside Japan weren't yet that invested into the franchise and didn't realize, because they didn't have access to the media of the time, how much of a shock it was and the level of expectations for that game. But Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VII Remake were definitely two of the most hyped games of all time. Some other extremely hyped up sequels that I'm going to put as honorable mentions on this list: Diablo 2 and Team Fortress 2, as well as StarCraft 2. These were games where the first in the series dropped and it was groundbreaking, and the desire and the anticipation of a sequel to also be as groundbreaking was there immediately. The GOAT, of course, Half-Life 3, but it hasn't been announced or released. You could also put Duke Nukem Forever in, but for other reasons. There are other games that I personally just don't count because they didn't have a build-up or they were just a little too niche to be most anticipated. And finally, the last two games I will talk about today, because this could be an extremely long video: GTA 6 and Elder Scrolls 6. I, of course, will start out with Elder Scrolls 6. Now, the obvious thing about Elder Scrolls 6 is that it will be the next game in a franchise that we have not gotten a new game for since like 3 presidencies ago. Elder Scrolls 6 was announced in 2018, and that is about it. It was revealed saying, hey, it's happening, and then it has not been talked about ever since. Up until recently, whenever Fallout headman Todd Howard eventually came out and said Elder Scrolls 6 is in development. But don't get your hopes up too high, little fanboys out there, because while The game has been announced. It has also been announced that it will not come out until 2026 at the earliest. The latest could potentially be 2028. But because it's being made by Bethesda, we could pretty much guarantee that Elder Scrolls 6 will not come out until probably like 2 Summer Olympics have gone by. Now, Elder Scrolls 6 has been hyped for a long time now, and I'm excited for it. Skyrim is one of my favorite games of all time, and I think Elder Scrolls 6 could be very good, but I don't really have any more information pretty much about what people are anticipating it for. It's still in early stages of development, and again, we have not seen really any gameplay of it at all, so we're just gonna have to wait and see. Some things that I can request for the brand new Elder Scrolls game to have, I would probably want it to evolve some levels from Skyrim that were seriously lacking. For instance, I feel like they can make the melee combat a little bit more interesting. Now, what I mean by that is in Skyrim, all you really do is swing your weapon around without a second thought. And I also think magic can be a lot more interesting as well. And that's pretty much all I got about that. Same thing with the skill tree. I think it can just be a little bit more interesting. And it would also be nice if what you did in the game had actual consequences in the world. It's okay if I miss some content because of my choices, Todd. I don't need to experience everything in one playthrough. I also think it would be really cool to have optional dialogue based on your race or your guild that you're a member of. And also just having a good building system that allows the main character to build their own small town. If you know what I mean? Like, that would be really cool. And those are just some things off the top of my head. Obviously, Bethesda doesn't need to go overboard with everything. I just think that if they just add these little details, I think while keeping the same Bethesda game formula, they'll have a smash hit with Elder Scrolls 6. And of course, probably the biggest game in all of entertainment history, Grand Theft Auto 6. Obviously, this game was only revealed about a year and a half ago. The trailer came out in December of 2023, I believe. But it's not about whenever this game was announced, it's about before this game was announced. I tell you what, this was one of the most clickbaited unboxings in YouTube history. There's a certain one on YouTube that really just, I don't know, it was a big deal back in like 2018. But after the monumental success of Grand Theft Auto 5 becoming the fastest selling video game of all time, becoming the highest grossing, I think, entertainment product ever, there was a lot of hype for the next GTA game. And of course, after that first trailer dropped in December 2023 for GTA 6, actually I'm pretty sure that's whenever it dropped, I'm fairly certain, there was no stopping the hype for this game. GTA 6 is also rumored to have a map that is absolutely gigantic, even bigger than the Grand Theft Auto 5 map, which was already pretty big. GTA 6 also has a chance to transcend gaming. I hate using that word. And it also has the possibility to make the purchase of PCs and consoles skyrocket. And it also has the chance, and probably will, be the highest grossing video game of all time. And I will leave it at that. We will just have to see whenever this game comes out later this year. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you all in the next video. Good! Bye.